This video is brought to you by Patreon supporter Scott.
Continuing with things that Scott sends me that I haven't got my hands on before, let's take a look at a Zeiss, shall we? More specifically, the Conquest V-4 1:4 by 24. And again, there's everything you're going to need to know. Made in Japan part is one of my favorite, especially for the price. These are about $500, which for a 1:4 for some people might seem expensive, but I think that's actually a pretty sweet spot for LPVO's cost and quality. Box is fantastic. Honestly, every time I get a box like this in hand, which for some reason, every time Scott sends me something, the box is always fantastic. No disappointments here, especially when you open it up. Look at that action. Beautiful. Look at that picture on the inside. Artwork. You can actually cut this off and put it on your wall if you wanted to. Boom. You're getting two things for the price of one. Foam does move around a little bit, but the scope itself is in there pretty snugly, which is really, really nice. Of course, before we get to that, let's take a look and flip through everything else. Owner's manual for the V4, and yes, as you can see, it does come in a wide variety of different magnifications. All right, there we go. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, there's the one we have. We'll take a look at that more in depth in person soon. Look at that. You know what? I'm going to use this. And here is a quick guide to this scope, or at least how to adjust it and how to reset it. So everything you're going to need to know would be in here. This thing feels pretty lightweight, and it feels quite good in hand. Starting at the back with a quick focus eyepiece, this is very easy to turn. Very little resistance, but it is extremely smooth. Probably on the smoother side of quick focus eyepieces that I've held over the years. Let's go full lock, go in a little bit, and check for wiggle, which there is absolutely none. I'm a stickler for when these wiggle because I always think that they're more prone to breaking with the more movement they already have from factory. This way, if you have it all the way out and you smash it into something, I feel like this would at least hold up better than something that already has play in it. So far, not bad. Now, this being a 1:4, how do they do this? So they actually have the numbers on the scope body itself, and the magnification ring just has a little dot, typically backwards from what normally is, but I can live with it. I'm cool. So 1 at the 3 o'clock position, 4 at the 9 o'clock position, 180 degrees rotation, which is the absolute norm with these things. However, they did include a nice little throw lever, and this is a hard, it feels like plastic, but it is aluminum. Nice and smooth, buttery smooth, in fact. Like, that's really smooth. Perfect amount of resistance. That throw lever gives purchase to your thumb, also allows you to index it really quick. You know you're at 4, you know you're at 1, you know you're halfway there, you're at 2. Beautiful. So far, really nice. Illumination comes in the form of 1 to 10 with offs in between each one, and it spins pretty nicely. Good amount of resistance. Once it's indexed, it requires a fair amount of pressure to turn it, and that's pretty good. It does stick out a little bit, but it does allow you to grab it really quickly and adjust it. Elevation knob, as you can see, is in MOA. One click is a half MOA, which is perfectly fine for an LPVO like this. You don't need a one click is an eighth MOA on an LPVO. It just doesn't make sense. Now these are also locking, pop to unlock. It sounds kind of plasticky, but this is aluminum. It does have a zero stop, as you can see, and we can adjust that if we took off this little Allen. Actually, that's a mini Torx. Pull that off and adjust it. But the locking mechanism is pretty solid. You don't have to worry about this thing coming undone and loosening up. And detent on this, pretty sharp. There is a little bit of wiggle, but that's probably just because the locking mechanism inside leaves a little bit to be desired. Honestly, I would always go for the model that has a capped elevation and windage knob on LPVO, but that's just my personal preference. At least if you go for this one, at least you know that it is pretty solid. Completely different turret on the windage, which again is perfectly fine how often you're really going to be adjusting this. Again, one click is half MOA. That's really sharp and crisp. Nice and tight too. I don't see why you just wouldn't have this there. Two nice caps. It would look so sleek and streamlined, but they have this gigantic target turret on top. Anyway, what a nice feature about this, pull, reset. Locks in place, and you're good to go. This is actually really, really nice. I like this style of turret on an LPVO because, again, it makes life just that much easier. Enough talking. Let's look through this thing.
Well, here you have it. Looking through the 1X, and the image looks pretty damn good, especially at the center. But the outside looks a little bit hazy, and we're going to touch on that a lot more in the full review. But the one thing that we can discuss right now is that reticle. And this is the Zeiss number 62 reticle. And I want to like it. It's trying to be minimalistic, but it's also trying to be a little bit too special. Illumination is at full, and the one thing I can say about this illumination is it is absolutely more than bright enough for most situations you'll ever need. However, I don't care much for the illumination pattern. I think too much of it's illuminated, and when you see this at night, it gets a little confusing. Zeiss tried really hard to give everyone a little bit of everything, but sometimes what you have with that is nothing that's really spectacular. But again, that's 100% personal preference, and something we're going to talk about very soon. Anyway, that's going to conclude this unboxing for right now. Scott, thank you very much for sending this in, and thank you all very much for watching. See you again next time.
And a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you, this wouldn't be possible.